Good morning, everybody. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our discussion today for Monday, Columbus Day, October 9th, 2023. We have quite a bit to go over today, including a hurricane threat to Mexico, imminent landfall within the next 24 to 36 hours. We'll go over that in a little bit. And yes, it is that hurricane, this tropical system that you see on the title card right now, Tropical Storm Lidia. Plus, in that uptick in Atlantic activity, we have two new areas of interest to watch. Both won't cause significant threat to land. One is all the way out there, and another one is closer to home, of course, but don't seem to be big threats to land. Right now, we'll go over all that and, of course, everything else that is going on. Glad to have you with us. Let's get started right away, of course, with the Atlantic. And as I did mention, yes, two areas of interest. And what I really meant by one is way out there, I really did mean it. Let's actually start with this. This is Invest 92L out in the Atlantic. It's a low latitude wave located several hundred miles south of the Cabo Verde Islands, and it is expected to potentially develop. Let's go to the 7-day forecast, and you'll see that a high chance within the next week that it could potentially form and become something of tropical entity. And it is very interesting, of course, that we are seeing something develop this far out in the Atlantic, this far east, because it's October, and climatology speaking, we never really get anything to form this far east. We usually look, especially around this time of year, closer towards us in the western Atlantic, usually past 55 or 60 west. But this year it seems like something was able to get going, a very strong tropical wave, and there is certainly quite a bit of model agreement that this could become something. Not sure exactly how strong. I guess we'll look at the models for that in just a little bit, but do want to talk about this as well. Another area of interest in the Bay of Campeche. This is going to be, I think, partially related to remnants of several tropical systems that will be making landfall in Mexico within the next day or two. One within the next 24 hours, and we'll go over that in just a little bit. But this is also a potential area to watch in the Gulf, but models are not really that aggressive on it in terms of development. But as I did mention, I think it is part of two systems that will come into Mexico, and that is Max and Lidia, both tropical storms. Max, though, right now closer towards the Mexican coastline, will make landfall very soon. 60 miles an hour with a pressure of 996 millibars. Moderate tropical storm, typical conditions you would expect for a tropical storm: landfall, heavy rains, gusty winds. Keep in mind for that, we'll go over the key messages in just a little bit. But then we also have Lidia, 65 miles an hour with a pressure of 992 millibars, and this could quickly ramp up within the next day or so and potentially become a hurricane, and a decently formidable one as it heads towards the central northern Mexican coastline, just south of the Baja, but around that general area right over here. I don't know the exact location. I think Manzanillo is in the hurricane warning, because there are hurricane warnings in effect for this, but we'll go over those in just a little bit. This is the satellite presentation, though. I got it stopped. Let me load it back up. This is the satellite image for Lidia, and you can see it does have that developing hurricane look. You do kind of see some sort of comma shape, very deep convection associated with this, so this certainly has some sort of structure. And as I did mention, NHC is forecasting that this will become a hurricane probably within the next few updates or so, and up to landfall, where it's expected tomorrow night around Eastern Time, 8 o'clock. Of course, tomorrow night, hurricane warnings are in effect for the Mexican coastline, and this could also become a formidable hurricane too. I think NHC has the peak at 100 miles an hour, and it is at this point, just before landfall, that it does have that peak with it. And some of the key messages you'll want to watch out for: Lidia is expected to strengthen, of course, before it reaches west central Mexico, and the hurricane conditions are expected within the hurricane warning area beginning tomorrow. So if you're along the coastline, batten down the hatches, get your preparations ready today, so you can remain indoors tomorrow and safe, or as much as possible safe. And then heavy rains with Lidia will likely produce flash flooding and urban flooding, and watch out for mudslides as well in higher terrain across the state of Nayarit, and sorry if I butchered that, in portions across the state of Sinaloa, and of course across portions of western Mexico, in Jalisco as well. So watch out for that, and storm surge is expected too. And let's actually really quickly take a look at what the NHC is expecting. Go to the public advisory, of course, if you want all the latest information. If you don't want to wait for my videos, of course, go to nhc.no.gov and look at the public advisory. They have everything you need to know, including the summary of watches and warnings that are in effect. Of course, the hurricane warning that we have in effect for Las Islas Marias, Playa Puebla to Esquinapa. And then, of course, there's a tropical storm warning in effect for Esquinapa, which is, of course, extending past the hurricane warning area from Esquinapa to Bahia Tempehuaya, I think so, and then Manzanillo to Playa Puebla is where we have the tropical storm warnings in effect. And then we also have other things that you should look out for. There's storm surge right here. A dangerous storm surge is expected to produce significant coastal flooding near and south to where the center will make landfall. Near the coast, storm surge will also be accompanied by large and dangerous waves. So please, if you're along the coastline, get indoors and also get to higher ground to avoid as much flooding as possible. And of course, we have the rainfall, which will be a threat too. Local maximum of up to 12 inches expected, with rainfall totals generally between 4 to 8 inches expected, so keep in mind for that. But of course, we have to watch for this little guy right here. This is Max. This is another landfalling tropical system on Mexico, which will make landfall probably within the next few hours. This is a tropical storm and will not be as strong as Lidia, but still expects gusty winds, of course, across portions of southern coastal Mexico where there is a tropical storm warning in effect. And then, of course, there are heavy rains, which will produce flash and urban flooding, likely with possible mudslides in higher terrain areas across the states of Guerrero and Michoacan in Mexico today. So watch out for this. And of course, we could take a look at a general wider view of the Atlantic. You could see this is that area right here, 92L. We'll talk about it in a little bit. And you could also see on satellite, it does kind of seem like it is getting its act together. Some sort of banding feature you can kind of see too. Also very dense convective activity blowing up as well. And as I did say, models are in general agreement that this could form over the next several days as it heads out, and of course far away from any sort of landmass in the Atlantic, which is a good thing. And then we also have our area in the Atlantic, and you can see Max here approaching Mexico, and then off, of course, to the far left of the screen, you can kind of see Lidia on the approach as well. So a lot going on today, and let's really quickly see what the models have for Max and Lidia. Of course, this is Lidia right now. This is as of hour 6, and you can see Max moves in within very short notice, kind of moves into the coast within the next 18 hours. It's already inland, and then you see our area in the Gulf of Mexico, and watch how we see the remnants of Max and also Lidia too kind of come in and combine into something that does seem like some sort of weather disturbance in the Gulf, hence why we have that area of interest there. But really quickly, let's focus on Lidia first. GFS rapidly deepens it. We are now down to 963, I think, on the GFS. Very formidable storm. This is a This is one of these signatures you want to look at when you're looking for a formidable hurricane. This is it. 963 millibars, probably around category 2 intensity as it approaches the coast of Mexico. Hour 36, 967 millibars, and then by hour 42, it is inland and continues to move eastward. And then you see in the Gulf of Mexico. And actually, let's switch it now to the Atlantic to just kind of get an idea of what's going on in the Atlantic side. You kind of see disturbance area in the Gulf of Mexico, lots of heavy rain possible. Kind of moves in through the Gulf Coast, Louisiana. That looks like a lot of heavy rain for you, and then that moves into the panhandle of Florida. No real organization, however, seems to appear on the graph. So in terms of tropical activity, I mean, you could kind of get an idea that this really doesn't have a high chance of really doing anything. NHC only has, as we looked, a 20% chance of formation within the next 48 hours and 7 days. So not a lot to be concerned about that in terms of tropical impacts, but expect heavy rain and gusty winds associated with this. And this is hour 72, moves across the southeast, and then this moves out into the open Atlantic as what seems to be probably a formidable extratropical system. And then you can see right here on the GFS 96 hours out, so roughly 4 days from now, GFS does begin to develop this. Guess remains weak on this one. And of course, you can kind of guess that this would maybe remain weak. It is October. This is up to hour 120. You kind of do see a little bit of a low pressure system forming there. Out in the eastern Atlantic associated with this is Invest 92L, but it is obviously October. Really wouldn't be shocking if this honestly doesn't form, because climatology isn't really favored for activity this far east, especially closer towards the Cabo Verde Islands. Usually, of course, we look for that activity in August and September, which we did get quite a decent amount of this year, but nonetheless still something out there that the models have. Why not, let's look at the European really quickly. And even the European too, kind of not very aggressive, though this is not at full run yet. Let's take a look at the zeros and see what they have. And same situation with the European too. That kind of dwindles out and kind of fizzles off and doesn't really do much, but at least in the short term, it could maybe become some sort of brief system. Once again, though, very far out there and really nothing of concern, at least for us, or any sort of landmass at all in the Atlantic basin as a whole. Really quickly do want to talk about Gulf sea surface temperatures, though, at least when it pertains to any sort of development that goes on in the Gulf. And it is a reminder, of course, it is very warm. Look at this, 28, 29, even 30 degrees Celsius, even 31s in the Bay of Campeche, roughly where we have our area of interest there right now. And I guess, that is a reminder the Gulf is very warm. And even if this were to have favorable conditions in the atmosphere, which probably why this won't develop, there's probably not enough favorable shear. Shear is very high. I think a very strong subtropical jet right now, which is of course not favorable for any sort of major development in systems. But of course, water is still warm, so I would expect, of course, that it is early October right now. We still got almost a month. We still got more than a month and a half left of this hurricane season. So just saying, you never know. Gulf is still warm. Water temperatures as a whole still above 28 degrees Celsius. Definitely still time for something to develop, at least in the Gulf, or at least closer to home in general. Maybe if it's something that develops in the Western Caribbean and then kind of heads north in the Gulf, there's still a lot of warm water there. So watch out. Hurricane season is not over. Still got quite a bit of ways left. You really shouldn't count out anything at all, in my opinion, till we get past the first or second week in November. Then we could begin to breathe a sigh of relief that we really won't expect much from that point on. But still, right now we're not in that time period. We're not in that time period yet. So of course, continue to keep track on things there. And of course, with Lidia, I will produce another update later today or so, if things do get interesting. But of course, if you're along the coast of Mexico, watch Lidia. Make your preparations final today, and please do not head outdoors tomorrow, especially if you're in the hurricane and tropical storm warned areas. Those are the areas probably the highest chance that we could get impacts from Lidia, and it of course is expected to remain a formidable system as well, especially as it's coming into Mexico. So keep that in mind. Other than that, that does wrap up today's discussion, or probably discussion for right now. Maybe I'll do another update today, depending on how things are. But I'll definitely try to do an update tomorrow, sometime in the afternoon, at least before Lydia makes landfall. So stay tuned for that. And of course, if you're new to my channel, like, comment, subscribe, share what you think about my updates. If you have any sort of comment for improvement, please feel free to comment that. And of course, enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to all, and we'll talk again soon.